Hi, I'm Amanda, the Nutrition Education Manager at Ceres Community Project. Today we're going to cook a Rainbow Frittata, a terrific recipe that incorporates lots of vegetables, eggs, cheese, and some herbs. It's very simple, highly nutritious, and delicious. And you can use any kind of vegetables you have in your local farmer's market, refrigerator, wherever you get your vegetables. Today we're very fortunate to have been able to harvest everything from the Ceres garden. So I'm going to explain what we're going to be cooking and then we'll get cooking together. So the first thing we're going to do is saute green garlic. So I have it cut up here. This is what it looks like. It's garlic that has not yet been dried. It's fresh picked from the garden. Then we're going to saute kale. Today we have dinosaur kale. This is an example of a young leaf of dinosaur kale where you can see some red tinge in the red highlights in the middle. These are beet greens, so this is the tops of beets. Here's a sample of a beet green leaf, a little one, a young beet green leaf. And then this plant is called purslane, and purslane looks like this. It volunteers in the garden. Some people consider it a weed. I consider it a treasure, because it's delicious, it's very nutritious. It actually draws nutrients to the surface of your garden. So it's useful in the garden as a nutrient accumulator that brings the nutrients to the surface so that you can use it as a ground cover and it supports your plants. And it's very tasty, it's mild, a little lemon flavored, it's a little bit succulent, has lots of vitamins, and it's resistant. So a plant that grows wild in your garden that we might consider a weed has wonderful characteristics of being resistant to pests and other drought. It's not very sensitive to environmental conditions. It's hardy. It's not vulnerable. And when we eat plants like that, we take in those qualities. So it's something to look for, is plants that are very hardy and resilient and resistant to pests and parasites or pathogens in the garden. Then we're going to add amaranth, which is another plant that volunteers in the garden. Amaranth is an interesting plant because it forms a seed that is a pseudo grain. It can be used as a grain and you can make cereal out of it, porridges, or use it like a grain. And this is what the amaranth looks like when it's very young. It grows into a very tall plant with a beautiful flower head, and that's where the seeds form. So it's a lovely plant to have in your garden, great to grow for the tender greens. Then we'll add parsley, and we're going to season it with tarragon. Tarragon is a lovely Mediterranean herb that you can grow in the garden, and you can also use it dried. And we're going to use a few sugar snap peas to garnish the top. It's the last of the sugar snap peas in the garden. These are our eggs that I've just mixed up, and we're going to use Chev, a local goat's cheese, and salt and pepper. So to get started, I've got the pan hot. I'm going to add the oil and then quickly start sauteing the vegetables. So there's about 2 teaspoons of oil that I'm going to coat the pan with, and then right away add the green garlic to the hot oil. I can hear the oil sizzling, which is what I want to wilt the vegetables. So now that I've added the vegetables, I can turn up the heat a little bit so I don't overheat the oil. The process of making a stovetop frittata is that you can think of it as layering the ingredients. So the first part is wilting or softening all of the vegetables. And as I said, you can use any kind of vegetables you enjoy. It's very versatile and adaptable. You can be creative with it. So I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit and let the garlic greens get soft before I add add the rest of the green vegetables. And then after that, we'll add the eggs and the cheese. And at that point, I'll make the heat very, very low. So when you're making a stovetop frittata, you want to be careful to cook it at a low heat so that the eggs don't get overly cooked or burnt on the bottom before they get solidified on the top. And if you're making a very large one or a very thick one, another way to finish a frittata is to put it under the broiler. To start it on the stovetop and then finish it on the broiler. You can also make frittatas 100% in the oven. Or saute the vegetables on the stovetop, add the eggs, and then put it in the oven is another way to do it. There's lots of ways to cook a frittata. And the nice thing about frittata is it highlights this idea of using animal products, the eggs and the cheese, to enhance vegetables. So to think of animal products a little bit like a condiment. The vegetables are going to take center stage and the animal products are going to be there to add some flavor and richness to the meal. But the beautiful vegetables are kind of the stars of the show. And we certainly have that here today with this selection of amazing, colorful, and delicious vegetables. So these have now gotten softer, the color has gotten brighter, they're wilted but they're not overcooked. Onions, plants in the onion family such as onions, scallions, leeks, shallots, garlic have compounds that don't get digested in our upper digestive tract. They get fermented in our colon, which means that they're feeding the beneficial bacteria in our colon. So you can think of the allium, the onion family, as prebiotics. They're food for probiotics, beneficial bacteria. So nice to use lots of them and nice to not overcook them, to keep them a little bit crunchy. So that's ready. Now I'm going to add the kale and wilt that. And if I were using vegetables that were denser, something like red peppers or mushrooms, I would use probably 4 cups of vegetables instead of 5 because they wouldn't cook down as much. Greens diminish in size a lot as you heat them. So I'm going to continue sauteing to wilt the kale. Turn the heat up a little higher. When the vegetables get wilted, they get a deeper green. That's a nice time to finish cooking them when they're that bright, bright green. And then I'm going to add the beet tops. So I consider the kale and the beet tops to be hardier greens than the purslane and the amaranth, which I would add to a salad very readily. Amaranth greens and purslane are more tender and are delicious raw in a salad. The amaranth greens, it depends how young you pick them. The very young ones don't need any cooking and are excellent broken up into a green leafy salad. So I'm adding them last as I wilt the vegetables because they need less heat to be palatable. So as the greens get wilted, they cook down, they release liquid and get smaller in size. They jump out of the pan. The word sauté is a French verb that means to jump. So when you're sautéing, you're jumping the vegetables, sometimes right out of the pan. So sauté is to hop or jump. Okay, That looks wilted. I can smell that they're cooking, getting brown a little bit. And now I'm going to add the purslane. A little bit of straw got in there from the garden. Get that out. And lastly, we'll add the amaranth before turning down the heat a lot before we add the eggs and the cheese. So I'm just letting the purslane get a little bit wilted, softening it up, turning the vegetables to get them all cooked evenly. That's what sauteing does, is it keeps moving the vegetables from the top down to the heat to create an even, quick cooking. Okay. And we'll now add the beautiful amaranth greens, which are not greens, they're reds. Colorful vegetables contain compounds that are beneficial for our health. The idea to eat the rainbow is something to think about when you're shopping for vegetables, and choose the most colorful vegetables for richness of vitamins and minerals. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the heat way down, and I'm going to add the eggs carefully so that they cover the whole dish. So I'm going to spread them out as I add them. First, I'm smoothing down my bed of greens. Get them off the spoon. And then I'm going to whip the eggs a little bit, adding some lightness to them as I beat in the air like that. And then I'm going to carefully spread them around to create a nice even layer on top of the frittata. And then on top of that, first I'm going to add some salt and pepper, so about a half a teaspoon of salt. And I could have salted the eggs if I wanted before I added it. And about a quarter teaspoon of ground pepper, freshly ground, like that. And then I'm going to spread the chev, the goat's cheese, on top, putting little pieces of it over the whole frittata so that it melts evenly over the top. And you could use cheddar cheese, grated cheddar cheese, really any kind of cheese that you enjoy would go well in the frittata. Now, a variety of vegetables would work in this, and a variety of cheese. Evenly spreading that around. Add it all. It's about 4 ounces of cheese. And then I'm going to add the tarragon, and this is fresh tarragon. I'm going to massage it a little bit as I add it, breaking it up and massaging it to release the flavors, the aromatics. So it's got oils that you can release by massaging it a little and then sprinkling it over the top. And I'll add the parsley similarly, just placing little pieces of parsley over the top. I could have minced it, but instead I've just broken it into little pieces of parsley leaf. And then I'm going to decorate the top with these sugar snap peas, making a spiral image on it, putting them in a star shape so that when we slice it, each piece can have a pea on it. so we can slice it into 5 or 6 pieces. Then I'm going to cover it with a lid. And with this very low flame, I'm going to let it cook for about 15 to 20 minutes. It takes a good 15 to 20 minutes to have the eggs be solid and not overcook the bottom. Have it be cooked all the way through. So after 20 minutes, this is what it'll look like. You'll have a beautiful frittata that is nutritious, delicious, tasty, and fun to make. I hope you enjoy making it. Take care. Thank you.